Welcome to X Girls, where we're answering your questions about the impact of the sex industry and life after sex work. My name is Ashley Abercrombie, and I'm your host today. I'm here with Harmony Dest, founder of Treasures, an outreach and support group to women in the sex industry based in the San Fernando Valley of LA. We also have Chrissy Moran, who works at Treasures as one of the peer mentors. And finally, we have Bronwyn Healy, founder of Hope Foundation in Australia, an outreach to women in prostitution. The great thing about these episodes is that we're going to answer your questions from the perspective of women who were in the sex industry. Harmony is an ex-stripper, Chrissy is an ex-porn star, and Bronwyn is an ex-prostitute. And together, they are the X Girls. So today our topic is actually about sex, which could be the elephant in the room since we're talking about the effect of sex work and then recovery after a life in the sex industry. So ladies, how did you view sex during your time in the business?
I would say sex for me was a tool for survival.
Wow.
And I used it to get relationship. I used it to get money for food. And it was also about power and control. It was not about intimacy, which I have a different understanding of what sex is about today, but it was not about intimacy. It was about power and control and definitely about survival.
To me, sex was like something I did to keep the guy. So it seemed like I had such an unhealthy view on it, but I knew that if I slept with a guy that he would be my boyfriend and we would live together. Mm-hmm. That's the pattern that happened for me. So, and then sex while working, I don't know, I just looked at it as not real, and it was a fantasy that I was fulfilling for somebody else. And there was a part of me that felt like people were taking something from me as well, like something sacred from me.
I think for me, mine was very similar to Harmony in the beginning before the sex industry. It was a tool for survival. It was like, oh, this is what I do, and I have this body and it's mine, and I'm able to do that. And then once I was in prostitution, it was a transaction, purely and simply. You know, it was just like, you're giving me money, I'm giving you my body, we're gonna have sex, full stop. And that took a long time to defrag that for me.
And you know, up to 90% of women in the sex industry come from backgrounds of sexual abuse. And I believe that when it comes to sexual abuse, you have this sense, this profound sense, at least I did, that my body is not my own anyways. So I felt very detached from my own body. So I felt like my body could do things, but I could detach myself from what my body was doing because of the sexual abuse that I experienced. And I even had this really incredible sense of denial about even what I was doing. I remember my rationalization, and I would give people this speech, as I would say, about stripping. I'd say, there's nothing inherently wrong with being naked, and there's nothing inherently wrong with dancing. And so if people in the audience want to have sexual interpretations of what I'm doing, then that's on them and that's not on me. All I'm doing is dancing naked. Wow. Which is, I mean, it was such a lie because obviously that's not all I was doing. But there was just such this sense of denial really operating about what I was even doing and not wanting to see the sexuality in it.
Yeah, from each of you, it sounds like there was a lot of disconnection because, you know, to me, like, the act of sex itself is so personal and it's so vulnerable, and so it's almost like you have to be disconnected. Can you speak to that feeling? I mean, you've referenced it in a few episodes, several of you have, about the disassociation and that relation to sexual abuse, but there just has to be such a vast disconnect between what your body is actually doing and your headspace.
Yeah, I had to, and disconnecting was a coping mechanism for me, is the way I survived it. As a matter of fact, and we talked in other episodes about my school and my education, but another way I used it is that when I was at the strip club, I would be on stage or I would be in the table dance booth, and in my head, I'm memorizing facts for a test that's coming up, while my body is doing like totally different things, but that's where I was in my head.
Wow.
When I was doing movies, I did through 3.5 years where I was with the abusive ex-boyfriend. We did movies together, and he was abusive, so I totally had to like disconnect from what was happening and disconnect from him because he was mad at me because people were looking at me. It was really really, really hard. And and whenever I would be doing the movie, I would just think about where the camera's at, what it's seeing, and what I'm giving. And just make it like I'm role playing it in my head, so I know what the viewer is looking at. It was just like it's just a business.
Wow. So coming up, our panel is going to talk about how their views on sex and sexuality have changed since they left the business.